But so as far as ranking these presidents, you know, who are the top two and who are the top? I mean,
oh, you have to buy the book for that. No, the top two, because I talked about it on the radio this morning, is Truman is my pick, and it's interesting because the Democrat and Republican, it's a nonpartisan book. Truman came out #1, followed by Ronald Reagan. Okay. And Ronald Reagan, by the way, came in #2 in the survey they announced this morning, which surprised me because I think it's largely built on the myth of Reagan, just like we've got all these other myths we're dealing with.
I think there's a recency bias there.
Yes, absolutely. And then on the downside, I already mentioned it, Richard Nixon is the only president of the 17 to get an F grade. And I would say his close compadres, again, looking hard from an ethical standpoint, would be Harding and Clinton. Who Clinton, the whole chapter that we wrote on Clinton is like this scandal, this scandal, this scandal. We couldn't put them all in the chapter because the book wasn't that long. But again, it's tough because he came out very high in the poll today because he's attractive. He's certainly popular within certain political elements, but if you sit there and you look at his administration, it's like he is a person, in my opinion, who is completely devoid of morals. And again, I'm not counting in what's happened subsequently that we've seen in the news recently, but just in terms of what happened before he was president, his scandal was called Whitewater as opposed to Watergate, and they had Travelgate while he was in there and all that. But those three people, Nixon, Harding, and Clinton, come to mind. Many people's consensus for one of the most failed presidency was Jimmy Carter. And the irony of Jimmy Carter was one of the more ethical people to serve in Washington. I mean, really a decent Christian man, a great businessman before he got to there, served in the military, but was an utter failure as president. So I think he's starting to pop up more on the bottom of the list these days.
So you mentioned that you ranked them based on two factors, right? An ethical factor and then like
leadership.
Leadership.
And I have got a great opportunity. You've heard 20/20 hindsight, you know, it's perfect. Is that other than, you know, Obama, who's, you know, we're still absorbing his outcome. The others, you know, we had pretty clear numbers, and some of the people, the data today, because of advanced statistics and great online stuff, we've got better data today than we had in the years past. While I'm writing the book, Harding's love child gets documented due to DNA evidence in 2015. While I'm writing the book, and Harding's chapter is already written, we get to go back and throw a piece in and say, oh, by the way, here's the documentation, because we put in about the allegations of the love child and his affairs and stuff, but they did a DNA test and found out that he had indeed fathered a child while he was in the White House in just less than 1,000 days. He was in less than 3 years.
With that said, I mean, did you like value those factors equally, or was the ethical aspect more given?
That's why everybody has to write their own book.
But like in your perspective,
I looked at both factors very carefully, but I also looked at the impact on America. And I think when you have, like George H.W. Bush clearly was involved with Iran-Contra, but we don't know how much. We don't have good documentation on whether he had dalliances, if we'll use that polite term. But he clearly had some issues, but I think overall that he actually, even though he lost, he had a pretty successful administration. And I explain that in the book because I have a separate chapter on economics that you'll probably find interesting. It's Schein's version of economics. Remember, I was an econ major as an undergrad. And, but we do a chapter on economics, which basically says that other than Franklin Roosevelt, nobody was in office long enough to change the world's largest economy. And the economy moves like a big wave. And so I do a lucky, unlucky. The luckiest president was Bill Clinton. The unluckiest president was H.W. Bush, the first Bush, because if the election had been held in 1990 or 1994, H.W. would have won the election because Clinton was relatively unknown. He was a governor from Arkansas, nobody's popular state. Usually governors come from big populous states like California, New York, and so forth, or Texas today, George W. Bush. So it's pretty interesting, but that was a little bit of how we got there.